let me give you, because we have a lot to talk about today. Mike Cugno is going to join us from Detroit. You had the joint practice number 2. Seems like the Dolphins may have won this one. I saw some pots and pans out on Glades Road. I asked some people, well, what's going on? And they said, good Dolphins practice.
Yeah.
I joined in. I always keep pots and pans in my car just for an instance like that. Mike Cugno is going to join us from Detroit. Clay Ferrero is going to join us today as well. Crowder is traveling. He's in Indianapolis. He was with us yesterday from Detroit. They are now at the Indianapolis training camp. I'm actually watching Indianapolis on Sports Center right now. They're in Indy. He's going to try to join us. He doesn't know if he has the acceptable space to do so, because he may just have to set up a computer outside on a practice field, but we will keep our eyes peeled for him on the.
I want to know what that looks like, where Crowder says, "Yeah, I got to set up out here," and
I'm
he's not
assuming
finding a stand.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's him in the bleachers, like just in the bleachers on. He's got his little snowball microphone, and then on an iPad. I mean, that's pretty much how I envision it.
Yeah.
Let me give you the training camp report that's sponsored by Miami-Dade County Public Schools Technical Colleges. MDCPS Technical Colleges offer over 60 affordable accredited programs, day or evening, hands-on training aligned with local employers. Call 305-558-8000 or visit careerinayear.com and launch your future today. I'll give you from today's joint practice from Chris Perkins in the Sun Sentinel, stock up and stock down for your Miami Dolphins. He's got stock up D. Eskridge. Says D. Eskridge had an outstanding touchdown reception over cornerback DJ Reed that excited the entire Dolphins sideline. Eskridge, who's earning a spot on the 53-man roster, has provided excitement as a wide receiver and kickoff and punt returner. Last week at Chicago, he had a 41-yard kickoff return and a 16-yard punt return. So stock up, according to the Sun Sentinel, D. Eskridge. Stock down, backup right tackle Larry Borum. He was going against Aiden Hutchinson. That ain't an easy matchup.
It is not.
Perk writes he was going against Aiden Hutchinson, one of the league's best, but he surrendered a sack and numerous pressures Thursday. The concern is Borum, who remains a backup to injured starting right tackle Austin Jackson, didn't show much improvement from Wednesday. The Dolphins must hope Borum's lack of adjustment isn't a common thread among backup offensive linemen. That's a tough matchup, Aiden Hutchinson, and he's got something to prove this season. He was out last season, so I'm not going to count Borum out just yet. Headlines with Solana brought to you by Doral Volkswagen. Doral VW just broke the rules of gravity. Prices are falling so fast, we're checking for a crater. Volkswagen's priced like they lost their minds. Doral VW, buckle up. No one sells for less.
Crater.
I barely knew her.
Hey.
Anyway.
Day 2 of joint practices. Have you read any of this like deep dive into Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins and the Athletic? A lot of people are posting about it. They're tweeting about it. Jeff Howe got to sit down with McDaniel and he did a piece on him. But one of the things that kind of struck me in the first couple paragraphs here, McDaniel said 5 players on the 2024 roster incurred half of the team's internal fines for distractions. Incurred.
In what?
Half incurred. Incurred?
No, incurred. Almost got it on the third try.
I think I got it on the first try.
You had incurred on the first one. You had incurred.
That's a ridiculous word to use. Nobody uses that in 2025. Come on, Jeff. Half of the team's internal
word fines. Like groceries.
Of course. So let's just say the Dolphins were intentional about the players they wanted to retain this season, along with the kinds of players they wanted to add to the roster. But what about Tyreek Hill? And he goes into Tyreek Hill. But
couldn't get anything for him.
That is interesting. 5 players on the roster last year.
So I see a lot of people tweeting about that, but that doesn't strike me as that odd. Because,
no, not at all.
But people seem to be like, wow, only 5. Like, if you're talking about internal fines, not talking about league fines for wearing your socks wrong or getting lippy with an official or whatever. If you're talking about internal fines, you're only going to have a handful of guys who aren't following the rules.
Yeah.
So that didn't strike me as odd. And we can probably pick out who the five are. I mean, if we
Right.
really thought
That,
about it.
that's
So,
all I'm highlighting here.
yeah.
I didn't find it odd as in, oh, only 5 guys. No. It makes all the sense in the world. It's the guys you kind of expected behind the scenes to be a pain in the ass. Tyreek Hill, who we all know is a part of that list. I'd bet my life savings on it.
Yeah.
And Jalen Ramsey, who doesn't want to be here and kind of took a shot at Mike McDaniel the other day on the pivot. So I just thought it was obvious. Like,
Yeah.
of those 5, those 2 are 100% in
Probably
my
the lion's
opinion.
share. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, if you think there's any chance the Dolphins are still going to trade Tyreek Hill,
Could be
they're not.
Javon as well. You know, Javon, friend of ours. I mean, they never really got serious with him. He may be one of those guys that they earmarked for departure. Said, you
Yeah.
know what? He's not buying into our program. He's not,
Yeah, but
possible.
he doesn't strike me as show up late. I don't know, but he doesn't
No,
strike me as
me
show up late
neither.
kind of
I'm just
guy.
saying, like, there were guys who they got rid of or guys who asked out, and Javon Holland seemingly wanted to stay here. They never really seemed like they had any interest in giving him anything of that was come close to what the Giants were offering.
But I think what it was, because remember, even entering last year, he wanted to get paid, and there was like no conversation with the Dolphins. It was basically, "We'll talk to you next year," which I think really pissed him off. It rubbed him the wrong way. I
Mm,
think he played himself into a category of guys who were going to get paid X amount at least, and the Dolphins didn't value him as somebody who they needed to pay that much money to at that position. They just didn't,
mm,
which is why I think he was always, and he understood that he was on the outs here. Like, he knew, hey, in free agency, I'm going to make this much money. So you got to pay me this much money. And the Dolphins are like, nah, we're not going to pay you that much money. Sorry, we don't value at that much. So that relationship, I think last offseason just
yes,
deteriorated.
it seemed usually if they're making a run at keeping somebody, even if it seems like you're not going to be able to keep them. And it was pretty clear they weren't making any kind of run at
Yeah.
keeping him.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll keep sharing some tidbits from this article as I read it during the break. But I don't know, I just found that pretty straightforward there. 5 guys had half of the fines inside the building. I think we all kind of have an idea of who a couple of those dudes were for
Yeah,
sure.
no doubt.
Tyreek didn't practice today, by the way, but as you mentioned, Jalen Waddle was back out on the practice field. And Hawk, I am changing my entire mentality on this team after today's practice. Yesterday, I tempered expectations. Today, I am raising expectations. I've got them in
Super
the
Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Fantastic.
Yeah, against Detroit.
Omar Kelly tweeted out today, I've covered the Dolphins for 18 years. Not even in their tank for 2 a season have I seen this fan base actively rooting against their team like this year. 2025 has a shot to be good, but not if you listen to Miami's own fan base. And he points out, keep in mind, I've seen 20 more practices than you. I'm down with Omar. I don't know what's going on here. I know maybe because people want to be rid of Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel and maybe even Tua, that they want the bottom to drop out because they know that's the way to ensure that those guys won't be coming back. I don't feel that way, but I'm in agreement with Omar. It feels to me like a lot of Dolphins Nation is just kind of almost celebrating a terrible practice like yesterday and gloating and preening around doing the I told you so and how come no one else in Dolphins management sees what I'm seeing coming. And I'm like, hey man, this team is nowhere near as bad as you think they are. They might
Yeah.
actually be good.
Here's the thing, though, and I'm not rooting for the Dolphins to lose. Obviously, I'm somebody who you could call detractor of this team, I guess. But Hawk, the owner put out a statement after last year that status quo would not be good enough. Correct me if I'm wrong. He put out a statement. He had to come out because of how upset
again,
people were. And he said status quo would not be good enough. The goal remains the same to go compete. And I think we all are understanding that this roster, this team right now is just status quo, which is what upsets me. I'm not rooting for them to lose, and I don't think they're terrible. I think they're a 9-8 football team. I think they're fine, but that's not what the owner told us was going to be acceptable, which is why I'm frustrated.
I don't think so. I mean, two separate things, obviously. No one wants a status quo season because it was a disappointing season. Everybody wants improvement, and there has to be a trip to the playoffs, and really there has to be a playoff victory. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. But to say that status quo is not acceptable is a lot different than almost rooting for your team's demise, which is what Omar is suggesting fans are doing. Yeah. And I do find, because even yesterday, I'm getting tweets and texts going, Hawk, how much are the Dolphins paying you? Like, you're on their payroll because it's ridiculous what you're saying. And I say this every year. I'm not getting paid anything by the Dolphins. Not only am I not getting paid anything by the Dolphins, we don't have any relationship with the Dolphins whatsoever. When I say none, I would not know who to call to get a guest on the air. That's how little a relationship. By the way, bad on them. I'm like, that's not on me. That's on them.
Right.
I wouldn't know where to start with getting Dolphins on the show. Joe Rose obviously has access because he's one of their broadcasters, but it's not on our station. And I usually go to a one preseason game. I'm not going to the Jacksonville game. I don't even know who to ask for tickets. So I don't get any money or anything from the Dolphins. I happen to like Tua. I happen to think 2023 was more representative of this team than last season. That's it. That's what I'm banking on. I could be wrong. I'm not telling you I'm not wrong, but I'm not a mouthpiece for the Dolphins. But I'm an optimist anyway. People are like, oh, you do this every season. Yeah. Who the hell wants to go into a season going, like I did that with the Marlins, and I've been pleasantly surprised. I was not high on the Marlins going into the season. They surprised me, and that's great. But I don't default to, oh, poor us, this team sucks. We only have a quarterback that almost was the MVP 2 seasons ago and threw for 4,000 yards and a receiver that almost hit 2,000 yards receiving. And like, yeah, no, I think it's a pretty decent team.
Yeah, I think they're decent. I think you're right. But I don't want decent. That's where you and I differ. I don't want decent. I want great.
I understand that, but you can't get to great from not great in one fell swoop. It just doesn't happen.
But at what point are we like expecting great? That's I don't want to get into the whole thing again, but Hawk, I mean, my entire life this team has been this.
That's fine, but you can't go from missing the playoffs to winning the Super Bowl. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, but I'm not asking to go win the Super Bowl. I'm just asking to be one of the teams in the mix to go win the Super Bowl. And
I think they've got the talent.
No. We'll see.